Tourism is all about adventure, excitement, and discovering new places. But sometimes things take a dark turn. In this video, we're diving into real-life cases where dream vacations turned into absolute nightmares. These are the most shocking and tragic deaths in the history of tourism, unexpected disasters that turned getaways into gut-wrenching stories. Buckle up, because this ride gets intense. Jamaica, with its sun-kissed beaches, pulsating reggae beats, and endless supply of tropical drinks, was the perfect getaway for 53-year-old Timothy Southern from Lichfield, Staffordshire. In May 2022, he landed at the Royal Decameron Club Caribbean in St. Lucia, and with his family, ready to soak up the warm island vibes. Days were spent basking in the sun, dipping in the ocean, and feasting on local delicacies, while evenings buzzed with music, laughter, and an array of colorful cocktails. One night, Timothy, feeling the island spirit, found himself in the middle of a drinking challenge with two fellow guests. The mission? Conquer all 21 cocktails on the menu in one sitting. Having already indulged in brandy and beer earlier in the day, one might think he'd call it a night, but the thrill of the challenge was just too tempting. The drinks flowed, the toasts kept coming, and the energy was infectious. Not typically a heavy drinker, Timothy dove into the challenge with enthusiasm. But after 12 cocktails, the mix of booze, heat, and sheer excitement began taking its toll. He started feeling wobbly, yet the buzz of the evening kept him going. Eventually, reality hit hard. He waved the white flag, said his goodbyes, and staggered back to his room, the resort's palm trees swaying, or was that just the alcohol? His family, unaware of just how much he had consumed, assumed he was simply exhausted from a long day. But once in his room, things took a turn for the worse. That lightheaded tipsiness transformed into a full-blown emergency. His stomach rebelled, nausea kicked in, and he struggled to stay coherent. In a desperate attempt to feel better, he tried to force himself to vomit but quickly found himself in trouble. A family member, sensing something was seriously wrong, rushed to his aid, placing him in the recovery position. Panic set in as his condition worsened. His breathing became shallow, his skin turned cold and clammy, and his family, now in full crisis mode, pleaded for help. A nurse finally arrived, but shockingly, no ambulance had been called. As precious minutes slipped away, the family begged for action. When the nurse finally began chest compressions, it was too late. Timothy's pulse was weak, his body unresponsive, and their worst fears became reality. He was gone. The cause of death? Acute gastroenteritis due to excessive alcohol consumption, a clinical explanation for an utterly heartbreaking loss. The Southern family's dream vacation had turned into an unthinkable nightmare. Their grief was compounded by anger, believing the resort had failed them, not only by allowing such reckless drinking but also by its delayed response. And as if fate hadn't been cruel enough, their travel insurance didn't cover repatriation, forcing them to start a GoFundMe to bring Timothy home. A paradise lost, in every sense of the word. Desiree Gibbon, a thrill-seeking 26-year-old from Queens, New York, set off on an adventure to Jamaica in November 2017. Staying at her grandmother's hotel in Montego Bay, she was more than just a tourist. She was a model, an aspiring filmmaker, and a globetrotter with big dreams of heading to film school in Europe. Montego Bay's lively streets and gorgeous beaches provided the perfect break from the chaotic pace of New York, offering both comfort and opportunity. Determined to make the most of her time there, she even sought a bartending job to help fund her future while uncovering the island's hidden gems. Her enthusiasm and open-minded nature led her to cross paths with all kinds of people, some friendly, others possibly dangerous. Despite whispers of certain areas, like Anchovy, being less than safe, Desiree either didn't notice or chose to ignore the warnings. Then, on November 26, 2017, she walked out of her grandmother's hotel to meet someone and vanished. The next morning, the worst possible news arrived. Locals in Anchovy discovered her body hidden in the bushes. Her throat had been slashed, her face bruised, a brutal and senseless attack that sent shockwaves through the community. Jamaica, already grappling with trust in its law enforcement, now faced another tragedy that seemed to slip through the cracks of justice. Desiree's devastated family was left struggling with the unthinkable. How could this happen in a place she had felt so at home? Her mother, Andrea, couldn't shake the horrifying thought that the killer was someone her daughter had trusted. Desiree had always been cautious, aware of the risks of traveling alone, yet it seemed her kindness had been betrayed in the worst possible way. The investigation was agonizingly slow. Overwhelmed authorities found little evidence, no immediate leads, and no suspects. As frustration mounted, rumors swirled. Was it a crime of passion, a robbery gone wrong, or something even more sinister lurking beneath the surface of paradise? Andrea, desperate for closure, was convinced her daughter had been deliberately lured away. The missing purse, money, and ID only reinforced the belief that it wasn't random. Weeks turned into months, and the case grew colder. Authorities released minimal details, citing an ongoing investigation, but progress was painfully slow. Desiree's family, stuck in an agonizing limbo, kept demanding answers, but their pleas seemed to fade into silence. The harsh reality set in. In a place where crime often met indifference and resources were stretched thin, finding justice felt impossible. Desiree's story became a chilling, cautionary tale, a reminder that even in the most beautiful places, danger can lurk beneath the surface. Her dreams of film school and making a name for herself were stolen in an instant, leaving behind only heartbreak and the unanswered question of who took her life. On September 19, 2019, Stephen Weber Jr., a 40-year-old from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, was living his best life on a dreamy vacation with his girlfriend, Kenesha Antoine. The couple had splurged on a once-in-a-lifetime experience at the ultra-luxurious Manta Resort off the coast of Pemba Island, Tanzania. Their underwater cabin, a jaw-dropping $1,700 a night stay, offered front-row seats to the wonders of marine life, like living inside a giant, fancy fish tank. But this wasn't just any getaway. It was meant to be a milestone in their love story. Stephen, a guy known for his adventurous and romantic streak, had a grand plan up his sleeve. He was about to pop the big question in the most unforgettable way possible, an underwater proposal. With a handwritten note tucked safely in a Ziploc bag and an engagement ring in hand, he set the stage for a moment, straight out of a movie. The note? Pure romance. He joked that he couldn't hold his breath long enough to list all the reasons he loved Kenesha, but assured her that his love for her grew stronger every day. Then, with a flip of the note, he dropped the bombshell. "Will you marry me?" Inside the cozy cabin, Kenesha eagerly waited, capturing the whole thing on video. As Stephen swam up to the glass, grinning like a kid with a secret, he held up the note and then the ring. She laughed, thrilled by the surprise, but just moments after, Stephen swam out of view, never to return. Minutes passed, then more. The excitement turned into worry. He should have been back by now. Kenesha, now panicking, tried to contact the resort staff. No luck. Desperate, she flagged down passing boaters for help. When Stephen was finally brought to the surface, he had a faint pulse, but despite CPR efforts, he didn't make it. Kenesha's heartbreak spilled onto Facebook, where she shared the gut-wrenching reality. Stephen never got to hear her say yes. She reminisced about their magical trip, how he had gushed over their once-in-a-lifetime experience. His sudden passing left everyone in shock. Stephen was an experienced swimmer, familiar with snorkeling, making the tragedy even harder to comprehend. His family, especially his sister Mandy, questioned if there was more to the story. How could such a confident swimmer not make it back? The Manta Resort released a statement confirming that Stephen drowned while freediving outside the cabin. The water was calm, the depth around 32 feet, and yet something went terribly wrong. Despite lingering questions, one truth remains. Stephen spent his final moments doing something he loved for someone he deeply cherished. His family and friends, though devastated, take solace in the joy he brought to so many lives. Kenesha, Heartbroken, but grateful for their time together, holds on to the memories of the man she was ready to call her husband. His tragic yet touching story continues to remind people of the fragility of life and the power of love. It was November 16, 2018, when 26-year-old John Allen Chow embarked on a mission that would change his life forever. A devoted American missionary, Chow had trained with All Nations International, a Christian organization, and was deeply passionate about sharing his faith. His dream? To reach the Sentinelese, a fiercely independent tribe living on North Sentinel Island in India's Andaman Islands. They had lived in isolation for thousands of years and were notorious for rejecting any outside contact. But despite the risks, Chow felt it was his calling to introduce them to Christianity. Chow wasn't new to the Andaman Islands. He had visited in 2015 and 2016, learning about the Sentinelese along the way. But this trip was different. This time, he wanted to meet them face to face. The Sentinelese, believed to number around 150, had a well-earned reputation for protecting their isolation, often greeting intruders with a barrage of arrows. Chow, however, was determined. He spent months preparing and hired local fishermen for $325 to take him close to the island, even though they knew it was illegal and extremely dangerous. On November 15th, Chow made his first attempt. Paddling in a kayak while the fishermen stayed behind, he approached the shore and introduced himself, saying that his name was John and that both he and Jesus loved them. The Sentinelese responded by readying their arrows. Hoping to win them over, he offered a fish. It didn't work. The tribe's hostility forced him to retreat. Not one to give up easily, Chow tried again later that day, bringing gifts like a football and more fish. The result? Another angry reaction and a hasty retreat. Frustrated but undeterred, he wrote in his journal that he was scared, but still felt called to his mission. He debated leaving, but ultimately decided he couldn't turn back. On November 16th, before making his final attempt, Chow penned a letter to his family, acknowledging the risks and asking for their forgiveness if things went wrong. He made it clear that he didn't blame the tribe or God for whatever might happen. The fishermen, waiting offshore, later reported that as Chow neared the beach, the Sentinelese attacked, shooting him with arrows before dragging his body away. They watched in horror, later recalling that the tribe appeared to bury him on the beach. Authorities confirmed Chow's death, but opted not to retrieve his remains to avoid further conflict. His mission sparked fierce debate. Some saw it as reckless, violating laws designed to protect the Sentinelese from outsiders and potential diseases. Others viewed it as a testament to his unwavering faith. His family forgave the tribe, seeing his mission as an act of sincere devotion. In the end, Chow's story serves as a powerful reminder of the tension between faith and respecting cultural boundaries, a topic that remains deeply polarizing. June 14, 2016, was supposed to be a magical evening at Disney World's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa in Orlando, Florida. The Graves family, visiting from Elkhorn, Nebraska, was soaking up the Disney magic. Among them was their adventurous 2-year-old son, Lane Thomas Graves, who was enjoying the warm night by the Seven Seas Lagoon with his parents, Matt and Melissa, and his big sister Ella. That night, Disney was screening Zootopia under the stars, and little Lane was having the time of his life, splashing in the shallow water near the shore. It was around 8:30 p.m., a time when the Florida alligators are most active. As Lane bent down near the water's edge, an alligator, estimated to be around 7 to 8 feet long, emerged from the lagoon. In a flash, the reptile lunged and grabbed Lane, mistaking him for an easy meal. Matt, standing just a few feet away, heard the splash and immediately sprang into action. Without hesitation, he rushed into the water, trying to pry his son from the gator's powerful jaws. He fought desperately, but the alligator was too strong, dragging Lane into deeper water and out of reach. It was every parent's worst nightmare unfolding in an instant. A massive search operation kicked off immediately. Disney staff, law enforcement, and dive teams worked through the night. After 17 grueling hours, Lane's body was found 6 feet underwater, about 15 yards from where he was taken. The medical examiner later confirmed his cause of death as drowning and traumatic injuries caused by the alligator. In the wake of the tragedy, Disney wasted no time making changes. They removed nearly 100 alligators from their properties, installed barriers around the lagoon, and put up new warning signs explicitly mentioning alligators. They also built a lighthouse memorial near the lagoon in honor of Lane. Meanwhile, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission investigated the incident and deemed it a predatory attack, noting that it occurred at dusk, prime hunting time for alligators. Although no swimming signs had been posted, they didn't warn guests about alligators. Shockingly, reports later revealed that some guests had even alerted Disney staff about a gator in the area before the attack, but no action was taken. Despite their unimaginable grief, Matt and Melissa Graves chose not to take legal action against Disney. Instead, they channeled their loss into something meaningful, establishing the Lane Thomas Foundation. The foundation helps families navigating pediatric organ transplants, a cause close to their hearts. On July 25, 2019, the world lost a bright young soul in a heartbreaking and deeply unsettling way. Alana Cutland, a 19-year-old Cambridge University student, met a tragic fate when she fell from a small plane into the dense, untamed jungles of Madagascar. What was supposed to be an incredible research adventure turned into an unimaginable nightmare. Alana was not your average college student. This second-year natural sciences whiz from Milton Keynes, England, was a lover of nature, a fearless explorer, and an independent spirit with a deep passion for discovering the unknown. She had set off on a solo research expedition to Madagascar with an ambitious goal: to study a rare species of crustaceans. Self-funded and determined, she embraced every challenge that came her way with an infectious enthusiasm that inspired those around her. Her family and friends described her as intelligent, adventurous, and always eager to learn more about the world. Her trip to Madagascar was a testament to her dedication and curiosity. She had carefully planned a 6-week study in Anjajavi, a remote and biodiverse region perfect for her research. However, her journey took an alarming turn after only 8 days. Something was wrong. Reports suggest that Alana started experiencing severe mental and physical distress, paranoia, confusion, and disorientation. The likely culprit? A reaction to doxycycline, an anti-malarial medication known to cause psychological side effects in rare cases. Her once sharp and inquisitive mind seemed to be battling something far beyond her control. As her condition worsened, her deeply concerned parents, back home in England, began receiving bizarre and unsettling phone calls from their daughter. Worried out of their minds and unable to help from thousands of miles away, they made the difficult decision to bring her home early. A private plane was arranged to take her from Anjajavi to the capital, Antananarivo, where she would catch a flight back to England. Accompanying her on this crucial flight were Ruth Johnson, a trusted family friend, and the pilot, Mahefa Tahina Rantoanina. On the morning of July 25th, the small Cessna aircraft took off, carrying 3 passengers. But what should have been a simple flight to safety quickly spiraled into chaos. Alana, visibly unwell and restless, unbuckled her seatbelt mid-flight and reached for the door. Panic erupted. Both Ruth and the pilot desperately tried to stop her, struggling against her distress and confusion. Despite their frantic efforts, Alana managed to break free, and in a moment that defied belief, she fell from the plane at an altitude of 3,700 feet, disappearing into the vast, unforgiving jungle below. A massive search operation was launched, but with thick forests, treacherous terrain, and an abundance of wildlife, the odds of finding her were slim. Days passed, and hope dwindled. But then, a local tribe made a grim discovery. Alana's remains were found, bringing at least a small measure of closure to her grieving loved ones. Her family, devastated beyond words, remembered her as a brilliant and independent young woman with a zest for life and an unrelenting passion for knowledge. The investigation that followed raised pressing questions about the potential dangers of anti-malarial medications. Could doxycycline have triggered Alana's tragic reaction? Her uncle, Lester Riley, believed so. He explained how her last phone calls had been filled with confusion and incoherence, suggesting a severe psychological reaction to the medication. Experts weighed in, acknowledging that while such side effects were rare, they could be devastating. Alana's case became a chilling reminder of the unseen mental health risks that medications can pose, especially for young travelers navigating unfamiliar environments. Beyond the medical concerns, Alana's story also underscored the immense psychological toll of isolation and stress. Though she was passionate about her research, the loneliness of being in a remote location, coupled with her deteriorating mental state, may have magnified her distress. Her family's attempts to support her were limited by distance, leaving them helpless as they tried to reach out through phone calls alone. Her tragic passing shed light on the importance of mental health awareness for travelers. It emphasized the need for better safety measures, proper medication monitoring, and increased support for those experiencing distress in foreign lands. Alana's family strongly believed that her actions were not deliberate, but rather the result of an overwhelming and uncontrollable medical condition. To those who knew and loved her, Alana was much more than the victim of an unfortunate tragedy. She was a vibrant, intelligent, and courageous young woman with a boundless curiosity for the world. Her untimely death was a heartbreaking loss, but her legacy serves as a powerful reminder of the need to prioritize mental health, especially for those embarking on challenging and adventurous journeys. Her story continues to resonate, urging people to take precautions, stay informed, and look out for one another when exploring the world.